Learn how to turbocharge your marketing results by building repeatable, scalable demand gen systems from Sheila Kloefkorn, CEO of KEO Marketing and founder of the Business Owners Marketing Academy. See if you qualify for a complimentary marketing roadmap for your business at keomarketing.com/audit.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to B2B Growth. I'm your host for today's episode. I'm Sheila Kloefkorn, CEO of KEO Marketing. This is the first episode in the Demand Gen series, and I'm joined today by Eric Friedman, Chairman and CEO of eSkill Corporation. Eric, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Sheila. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you.
So today, our topic that you're going to be unpacking for us is about integrated lead generation and marketing. But before we begin, can you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, a little bit about your background and eSkill's great background, and what eSkill does?
Sure. So I founded eSkill in 2003 with the vision of an online software as a service that could customize a test to match any job description. So if you have a job that requires English language proficiency, Microsoft Excel, and basic computer knowledge, you need a 10-question test or a 100-question test. You pick those subjects, generate a test, and then you have a valid test you can use to select which among your job applicants is most qualified for this job.
That's pretty important.
It is, both to have candidates that are engaged with you as an employer, they're learning what this job is about, and of course for you as an employer, to weed out among thousands and thousands of candidates who is worth investing personal time in for full interviews and background checks and things like that.
That's great. And so I know you've really grown over the years. Can you talk a little bit about that too?
Sure. So we are a self-funded company. We never raise institutional money. And so we've never had a down year in over 15 years of being on the market. This year, we're growing over 70%. It's been a wonderful year for us. And that's due in part to the increased quality and sophistication of our marketing to sales funnel. We wasn't very, very product heavy. And I think it took a long time before we had the expertise and awareness to bring sales and marketing to the level of the product. That's been a learning curve over the past 15 years for us.
Mm-hmm.
So originally, I started managing our pay-per-click campaign. I remember very early on signing up for an account at Google. You set up the program, and you have a giant empty screen in front of you, and you got to start filling out keywords and bids. And it's a little daunting.
It is.
So I remember putting together our first website it was long before WordPress. I don't even remember what application it was, but we had a basic site. I didn't know anything about SEO except, okay, here's a website, SEO that must therefore happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then pay-per-click. And so really our two channels at that time were SEO and pay-per-click. And as I'm sure you can elaborate, we've been working with KEO for quite a few months now. And we've made our marketing a lot more sophisticated to be present in a lot more places to project the kind of power and importance and credibility that we need.
Mm-hmm. And so I think for a lot of our listeners, they can either remember that stage when, as the entrepreneur, you're involved in every little part of marketing and sales and product development to growing to the stage you're at now. What do you think has been one of the biggest changes other than just realizing that you needed to bring marketing and sales up to the level of the product?
Well, I think that the best kind of buyers are the ones who feel like they've come to their own decision to buy your product versus having it pushed into their face too hard.
Right.
So while we do advertising occasionally, I don't think it's the advertising that creates the leads. The advertising just makes us seem like we're rich and powerful and therefore able to afford advertising.
Yes.
And that there's a role for that.
Mhm.
But I think what's even more important is when people see copy, website copy, blog postings, articles written by people that have an affiliation with eSkill,
Mhm.
interviews on a podcast by the CEO, we should sound like we know what we're talking about and we have a lot of experience in this area. And that message should be unified among all the different kinds of media that they should be looking at.
Mhm.
So quality copywriting took a long time for us to come by. There's only so much that I can write since I'm sort of working administering things. And when you have copywriters that aren't really deeply part of the company, they often write things that don't sound sophisticated to an HR buyer that knows a lot about what we're doing, what we should be doing, and they know more than the writers who are writing stuff they're supposedly from eSkill.
Right.
So one of the things KO has helped us with is sourcing HR professionals that specialize in writing and understand, the problems we're trying to solve, the predicaments our clients and prospects are in, and can articulate exactly why eSkill is the best assessment provider to solve those problems, but in a very educational way that doesn't push us too hard. So our readers will say, "Oh, wow, this is great. So this is supported by eSkill. Let's take eSkill a look because they clearly have a background in this, like no one else seems to."
Right. Right. Well, and I think one of the things that I've noticed is that your company has become incredibly customer focused. So you're saying things like we need to have relevant copy that speaks to the buyer and those kinds of things. But I think it's also in eSkill's DNA that you've built a product that is deeply embedded in solving the problems that human resources folks have, especially in the recruiting process. So the product itself is incredibly valuable. And then to set the bar so high that you need to be able to talk about what it does in terms of the value that it provides is really important, because we all know that we see so many websites that have lots of fluffy copy that say they do very general things. And it's really a great experience to go to a website that really narrows in on what my problems are and how somebody can help and makes it easy to do that, right?
Yeah. Well, let's focus on one thing that was floating through my mind as you were just talking right now, which is when you're writing advertising copy. I'm sure many of our listeners and myself, I get probably like 100 emails a day from vendors of various kinds of services that offer very generic benefits, like hire better, save money, do things faster. And it's very easy to get lost in that noise because it's very, very generic. That's
Right.
why I try to focus our marketing. We do like one thing really well. We help you have access to the best assessments to test people to see their fitness for a job or their readiness for a training objective. We're not a job board. We're not a staffing firm. We're not an applicant tracking system. We, test people with customized tests. So I try to have marketing messages that really talk to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, using these tests will help you hire more accurately. You'll have higher performing employees. You will hire faster. You will save money. I don't like headlining or marketing with any of those messages, though, because they're very generic. I mean, a staffing firm is supposed to help you hire faster, too.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to focus on, we help you select the best candidates based on their skills. So that'd be my preferred message, because that cuts through the noise, and people who actually want to shop for an assessment provider, that's the message that will grab them over hire better, faster.
Right, because it's one really important piece in the hire better, faster, but it makes it really clear what you do and how you fit with the rest of their system. And if you're getting 1,000 emails, your customers are also getting 1,000 emails a day.
Exactly.
And they've got to figure out from all of those things, where is this going to fit?
Exactly. So yes, that's one thing in marketing that I've come to learn. And our organizations are trying to keep us focused on being very, very specific as to what are eSkills. What can we offer you, and not confuse that with things we can't offer you.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, I know you have a lot of different things going on related to your B2B demand gen and marketing program. You've got paid advertising with PPC and programmatic advertising, social advertising, SEO. You've even got review sites. And I know that your team is really focused on monitoring the conversions of those leads across all of the channels. You've got a very sophisticated Salesforce CRM instance where you're tracking all of this. What do you think is important about having a large integrated marketing campaign like that?
Well, I guess the world's evolving very fast, and there's many different ways people get their information now. So I think that the most enlightened, best funded companies know that. And so they're placing their information in as many of these channels as possible and doing it well. So one way to join those ranks of large, successful companies is to do the same thing. People have no idea how big or small eSkill actually is. But what's more important is that they think we're substantial enough to trust a very critical part of their hiring process to us. And then we have to follow through on the operation side with delivering that experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I could spend many more podcasts talking about operating, following through operations.
Right.
But, KEO really helped us with the marketing manpower that we didn't have before to make sure that we have blogs, articles, white papers, other things coming out, certainly web pages that all have similar messaging that don't conflict with each other. And also we're constantly coming out with fresh messaging because we have many different markets to address. We have hospitality, we have computer programmers, we have the training market, the pre-hire assessment market. So each of those kinds of vertical markets, either by product or by industry, need their own integrated campaigns. So that's sophisticated, and that takes a lot of people really focused just on those details. So whereas back in the day, maybe it was okay for me to actually run the pay-per-click campaign as the CEO. Now I'm very far removed from that, which is probably a good thing.
Right. Well, I mean, I think the growth of your company is just so impressive, and what you've been able to do. You and I have talked about what type of leadership it takes to make that happen. And I really admire how you show up with teams when there's conflict, when there's challenges, when there's celebrations, all of that kind of thing. So if there's one big takeaway from your incredible journey with eSkill that you would share with other executives or leaders or marketing people, any thoughts on that?
Sure. Oh, I like to think that the two things that I hopefully do well at eSkill, I sort of understand, or I think I understand, a product direction we need to go in, and the strategy of how to compete to get there. But that aside, day to day, I like to think that we've always tried to hire good people, and then my job is to serve those people. I want them to have a great place to work. I want them to be happy. I want them to feel that they have ownership over the stuff that they're doing and they're being paid fairly for it. I also have a personal motto at work, which is I take my work seriously, but not myself. And what that really means is, yes, when I'm focused on something, I want it to be high quality. I want it to reflect the quality of the whole company should reflect. But I'm not easily offended. I don't get upset really easily. And I've just had too many bad experiences earlier in my career when, egos and defensiveness kick in, and then everyone's morale gets dragged down. So if I see those sorts of emotional conflicts brewing anywhere, I try to get back to the facts. Because at the end of the day, sort of my point of view, I want the company to move forward. I don't want to get caught up in internal politics too much.
Right.
So let's figure out what's going on. How can we improve this process right now? And the big picture, if there's patterns of failure, you say, okay, what do we have to do to correct that? But I try to keep everybody happy and drama very low.
I think you do a fantastic job of that. And as a result, you have teams all over the world working on your company's deliverables. And for the most part, those teams work really well together, which is a big challenge. So to have built a company with such a powerful product portfolio, I mean, eSkill is the largest skills testing provider in the world, serving the biggest companies, every big name that you can think of, from Coca-Cola to Zappos to others. It's an incredible company that you've built, and the people who work for you are great people to work with. And you've got a marketing program that continues to evolve and serve. I mean, you just launched a new website this week, which is very exciting. Folks can go and see it at eSkill.com. They can look through the largest test catalog of any assessment provider out there and really find an assessment that's going to help them find and place the best people in their companies no matter what. So it's just a very, very impressive company and an impressive offering that you've put together. If there are just maybe a couple of key points that you'd leave people with today, what would those be?
Well, thank you for all those super kind words. That's very nice of you. The other thing I would touch on is that marketing has done a lot to drive people's awareness of eSkill and to bring in these leads. But you, Sheila, touched on that once we have the leads, what do we do with them? And one of the most effective things we did as a company was switch to a sales-only model where every salesperson managed their own clients, to separating sales from client success management, which has become pretty standard at larger software companies. Because if you are an HR person and you're logging into eSkill, there's over 1,000 tests you can pick, or you can customize your own with the tool set there. But that's daunting for a lot of people who have other things to do. So for us, having every account is assigned a US-based client success manager who can help them design the tests they need or pick the tests and just be there as an expert. So I think with a lot of businesses, you have to be aware that once you sell someone, if you expect to renew them at the end of the year, you really have to nurture them. And probably having a dedicated team of nurturers isn't a bad idea if you don't have it already.
Absolutely. And that connection between having a really great onboarding and marketing experience and sales experience to the customer experience, because you want to keep these customers for a long time, is so, so important. I think that's an incredibly important point to make to our listeners. Well, Eric, this has been a great conversation. I love your perspectives on the business, on leadership, and on marketing. It's been very valuable. If anyone listening has follow-up questions or would just like to connect with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Sure. I am at eFriedman, EFRIEDMAN, at eSkill.com. Or certainly if you called the company, they would put you in touch with me.
Oh, that's great. That's great that you're so accessible. And thanks so much for sharing today. Thanks for being on the show. We really appreciate it. That's the B2B Growth Demand Gen series. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Sheila.
Hey guys, if you've been listening to B2B Growth for a while, you know we're good friends with Sangram over at Terminus. So we wanted to let you know something really cool he's up to lately. This week and this week only, Sangram's newest book, ABM is B2B, is available for just $1.99. That's right, $1.99, a steal from the regular $14.95 price. And here are a few reasons why you want to check out this book. One, you'll learn stories from 6 companies and the specific steps they took to take their ABM program from good to great. You'll also learn the team framework that Sangram talks about and is time-tested in over 100 companies. If that's not enough, they're giving away 100% of the profits and $10 per review of the book to the New Story charity. So check out the link in the show notes to take advantage of this screaming deal and get your copy of ABM is B2B by Sangram Vajre and Eric Spett on Amazon for just $1.99 this week.